In the shadows of Borderlands 2's glory and the storm of controversies around Borderlands 3 lies a hidden gem, overshadowed yet undeniably epic. A game that never had the chance to fully evolve and is often dismissed in conversations about the series. Look, I get it. The movie flopped, they just announced Borderlands 4, and everyone's all excited to replay Borderlands 2 and 3. It's upsetting to me because I really enjoyed the pre-sequel, but like others, it wasn't my go-to game when I decided to recently play through the series again. But when I eventually came back, I realized that there's so many overlooked aspects of this game. Borderlands 2 is known for its amazing story, and Borderlands 3 is known for how smooth the gameplay feels. What's the pre-sequel known for? Being Space Australia?
I'm warning you, kid. You and your pet Vault Hunter try any funny business and I'll wear your eyeballs as earrings.
Well, no more. Today, we're appreciating the pre-sequel for everything it's done to drive the Borderlands series forward. Borderlands the pre-sequel expanded upon what made Borderlands 2 so great while setting up the gameplay mechanics that would eventually come to fruition in Borderlands 3. Let's take a look at some of those. Notably, the pre-sequel is the first Borderlands game to not take place on Pandora. We're instead on Pandora's moon and a giant-ass Hyperion base that orbits it. And that's just so fucking awesome, being able to finally explore the areas you always see in the skies of Borderlands 2. Borderlands 3 would then take this idea and expand upon it further by allowing players to travel to other planets entirely. Borderlands the pre-sequel was also the first entry in the series to experiment with the movement system. As you'd expect in outer space, characters in the pre-sequel are floatier, which makes it a lot easier to maneuver around the map. I'd like to think this idea of easier level navigation was a precursor to mantling in Borderlands 3. Zero gravity combat just fits right in with Borderlands. If someone is shooting you from high ground, it's so fun to just fly up and shotgun them in the face instead of having to slowly run over to them like in previous games. I know floatier movement is usually a turnoff in first person shooters, but they really pulled it off in this game by giving players just enough control over their actions. The pre-sequel also introduced Groundpounding to the series. Not exactly an original concept in the gaming industry, but it could be customized with different elemental effects, which was interesting. I'm sure most people really just used it to get down to the ground faster. As I'm sure everyone was hoping, Groundpounding did in fact return in Borderlands 3, but it wasn't really like as fun because there wasn't any zero gravity shenanigans you can pull off with it, so it was kind of just like you swam on the ground and like, you know, that's really it. You just get back up and, you know, no fun bouncing or anything. What about the fact that your character actually speaks and gets involved in the story?
Ta-ta-da! Greetings! I am Super Ego Trap, righter of wrongs and wronger of rights. I seek a sidekick to aid me in the dramatic rescue of a fair lady. Are you with me? Oh boy, am I ever! Let's right that wrong!
To round off our list, we have the introduction of the Cryo Element. This element replaces the awful Slag element in the series moving forward. You see, Cryo does what you would expect. Slow down and freeze enemies. Not only is it perfect in this game when enemies are flying all over the place, but this is the first element in the series to have a noticeable effect in battle outside of just being more effective on a certain kind of enemy. What I'm trying to get at with all of this is that the pre-sequel took a lot of risks with the highly coveted Borderlands 2 gameplay loop that ultimately became staples in Borderlands 3. For taking such a small step in the franchise, the pre-sequel ended up taking a giant leap in terms of impact. If there's one thing the pre-sequel is known for, it's having the best lineup of Vault Hunters in the series. From the base roster, you've got Athena from the Borderlands 1 General Knox DLC, Wilhelm from Borderlands 2, Nisha, interestingly enough, who was the boss of an optional area in Borderlands 2, and this piece of shit. When this game was first announced, I don't think anyone ever expected that fucking Claptrap would ever be a playable character, and he might have the coolest kit in the entire series. His action skill is vaulthunter.exe, which takes into account things like if your shield is broken, how much health you have, your ammo count, if there's a badass enemy present, and gives you a random ability based on those factors. The abilities, for the most part, are action skills from previous Vault Hunters. But he's got some fun original ones too, like turning into a fucking pirate ship that shoots cannons to the beat of 1812 Overture. Despite having so many unoriginal abilities, what makes Claptrap so unique is the fact that, again, the abilities are random. Unlike literally any other playable character in the series, you never have an idea of how you approach a fight. There was one time I was fighting the final boss who only takes damage to the face. I used vaulthunter.exe and I was forced into melee only mode. This might be frustrating to some who want a consistent experience, but it's a lot of fun for me to just adapt to whatever I'm given. The uniqueness doesn't stop there. If you've ever played a Borderlands game, you'll know that literally nobody in the series likes this guy. They actually found a way to make Claptrap annoying in multiplayer because a lot of his abilities will transfer to the other players. For example, if he gets the Fun Zerker ability, everyone else in the lobby will be forced to constantly shoot their guns until it ends. But he can also buff his entire team if everyone high-fives him, which I thought was an interesting touch. Long story short, I don't care how expansive or overpowered Vault Hunters are in other games. I think Claptrap alone is a testament to how creative the gameplay experience is in the pre-sequel. The pre-sequel is the backstory of Handsome Jack and bridges the gap between Borderlands 1 and 2. I'm not going to give a whole retelling of the story, but there's definitely a few callouts I wanted to make. Notably, the mental decline of Handsome Jack. When we meet him in the first level, he's just a douchey Hyperion programmer, but we eventually find out that he's already crazy. He took the Eye of the Destroyer from Borderlands 1 and hooked it up to the moon base so that he can destroy the bandit clans on Pandora. At the end of the game, Lilith teleports in, gives Jack the iconic scar that forces him to wear a mask in Borderlands 2, and I just gotta say, this is my only major gripe with the story. You came all this way to punch him, why not just fucking kill him? As a matter of fact, why didn't she do this in Borderlands 2? Outside the main story, there's also a really cool side quest that has the player helping Jack to create his loader army, which I thought was really cool because that's the common enemy in Borderlands 2, and it also kind of shows like how they're shipped off to Pandora, so, you know, pretty neat backstory there. It's these kinds of small details against the broader story that are only possible to include given the pre-sequel's place in the Borderlands timeline. I'm not normally invested in the story of a Borderlands game because of how much they rely on shit like and
that sentence had too many syllables. Apologize!
But the unique position of the pre-sequel story felt like I was seeing behind the curtain of a magic trick, and that's just awesome. Unlike the other Borderlands games, the pre-sequel only had one DLC expansion, the Claptastic Voyage. This is regarded by most as the best DLC in the franchise, only rivaling Tiny Tina's assault on Dragon Keep. It's a literal deep dive in the Claptrap psyche after the events of the main story, and at the end of it, Handsome Jack makes the best decision in the series.
Good to be the king, baby. Celebrate time. Celebrate good times, come on. Celebrate. Celebrate good times, come on. Let's celebrate. There's a party going on right here. A celebration to last throughout the years. So bring your good times.
The DLC uses incredibly creative visual storytelling techniques to illustrate how Claptrap perceives himself, if you're into that kind of thing. A detail that stuck out to me was these pop-up ads that occasionally come up to block your path, showing just how much of an infected piece of shit this guy really is. This DLC also introduced the Holodome, basically the same thing as other arenas in the series where you fight off waves and waves of enemies. However, there's a peculiar machine here that allows you to input specific modifiers to change up the battlefield. For example, your health might constantly drain, or you might be affected by zero gravity even more. Modifiers would return in Borderlands 3's highly regarded mayhem mode.
It's like puking on a pile of shit.
On a more positive note, the Claptastic Voyage introduced a new weapon rarity that actually does something unique. Unlike Pearlescent and Seraph weapons, glitch weapons feature bonuses that have a chance to be triggered each time you reload. These bonuses range from upping your weapon's damage to not consuming ammo when firing. I think glitch weapons were a step in the right direction if the series wanted to keep introducing new weapon rarities that aren't just reskinned legendaries. Overall, the Claptastic Voyage followed the main game's lead by continuing to innovate upon the Borderlands formula. If just this one DLC alone was amazing, it's sad to think that we never got to see what else this game could have offered, which leads me to my final point. Less than a month after the Claptastic Voyage was released, 2K Australia shut down, and all of the pre-sequel developers lost their jobs as a result, meaning the pre-sequel never had a chance to really expand itself the way other Borderlands games did. The game doesn't really have an endgame, which is one of the most important aspects of any Borderlands game. You have the standard True Vault Hunter and Ultimate Vault Hunter modes, one raid boss, which is just a harder version of the final boss, the DLC and its Holodome, and that's it. The main story itself is also shorter than the other Borderlands games, so there's really not much replayable content once you've experienced everything. It's a shame because for all the risk that the pre-sequel took, we only got a taste of what could have been. The pre-sequel might not have the best story or the flashiest gunplay in the series, but it's definitely the most unique despite working around the pre-established story and characters. For that, I think it should hold some ground against the other Borderlands games, even if its replayability holds it back. If you're someone new to Borderlands, or just replaying the games with Borderlands 4 on the horizon, don't overlook the pre-sequel. It comes packaged with everything that makes a Borderlands game great while offering special experiences that can't be found anywhere else in the series. Let me know your thoughts on the pre-sequel down in the comments below. And that's it for me. Have a good one.